Hello guys, welcome back. Yep. I'm disturbed. Hello.
Hi,
Can you
how are
turn
you?
it up a little bit? Hold on, I'm just getting ready. How are
I'm
you?
good. It's so nice to finally meet
I
you in
know.
person.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this chat. So I'm gonna explain myself and what I do, and then you can explain yourself. Hi
Yeah.
guys, I'm Courtney Gabrus. I have muscular dystrophy. I survived a stroke in college 7 years ago, and now I'm a graphic designer, and I have all inclusive, and I do this podcast to educate and talk to my fellow peers in the disabled community. And I am so excited for Amanda to share her story. So, Amanda, can you just share your story?
Yeah. So my name is Amanda and I run the Her Chronic Wellness blog and account. I just started it brand new. I also have muscular dystrophy, but a very different form. I have limb girdle muscular dystrophy. I was diagnosed when I was 14 years old. I'm 26 now. And for work, I am a senior user experience designer at JP Morgan. So I'm in the corporate world, designing credit card experiences and fun stuff like that.
Yay!
Yeah. So we're kind of in
I
similar
know!
but different lines of business.
I'm so
So that's so
excited.
funny.
I don't really have graphic designer friends, so I'm just so excited to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go back, talking about navigating with your muscular dystrophy, living it with your muscular dystrophy. What is your journey to, like, obviously you got diagnosed at 16, right?
I was
So
diagnosed at
yeah,
14, yeah.
okay, I was 16. So
Yeah, I think that I probably had a really unique experience because I didn't have any
okay,
weakness. When I was diagnosed, I was in sports, I was very active. And the reason why they found out something was wrong is because I was just getting a routine physical to go off to summer camp. And my creatine kinase levels came back like super, super high, which is very typical for muscular dystrophy patients. I don't know about your type, but I know with like limb girdle, it's very typical. So it was astronomically high, and they did not know why. And they were like, this is a sign of like, she's either an alcoholic at 14 or something's really wrong. And I was not an alcoholic. So I went and we started digging more, started visiting the hospital, the neurologist, the rheumatologist, trying to figure things out. It was a very long process of weaning things out. And eventually, at the time, they didn't have genetic tests. They didn't have the type that you can do now where you can just like spit in a tube, send it in the
yeah,
mail, and go get your diagnosis. So I had to go get a muscle biopsy
yeah,
where they cut out a chunk of
yeah,
my thigh,
yeah, yeah, me too.
shipped it off, and I came back with this inability to create dysferlin, which is a gene that you need to
Yeah,
create muscle. So that's kind of how I got the diagnosis. I was one of the first to be diagnosed in my subclass, which is 2B, dysferlinopathy. And ever since then, my life has been pretty normal until I was like 20 years old. And that's when things started to atrophy. That's when I started noticing a lot of pain, getting steroid shots, getting MRIs to see like what's going on, like how far are we, how much longer do I have to walk, like where are we at in this process, because it's just hard to tell what's going on in your body when you just like are a teenager living
yeah,
it and you're just kind of noticing the pain. And I
Right.
noticed also like the pain, when you're in pain, if it slowly creeps up, it's kind of like a frog in boiling water. Like you just don't notice it until it's relieved. And so that's kind of been an interesting journey, like navigating the pain and the atrophy of my muscles. So that's been my journey so far, and it's been unique. And I thought, why not, start a community of people that don't talk, like that talk about this type of issue. And then I found you. You were one of the first people I found and bonded with, and then featured
Yay!
you.
Yeah, your story is so unique. I've never actually met a, a, or a guy or girl that was not in a wheelchair. So I walked until middle school and then I got a scooter. So my background, I got diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 3. They really didn't have any, like you said, the genetic testing. My mom was a nurse, and my mom's like, no, you have to, get the type. They were like, yeah, your type is like kind of like, not SMA or like Limb Girdle. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I was just like bobbing. Um, and yeah, I think middle school was like, oh shit, like I cannot walk, 2 miles
Yeah.
anymore. And I was really getting really sick. I was in the nurse because I was literally like burning calories. So yeah, that's when it all really hit me. But again, we were so young and we didn't have social media. So I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna write it out. Until probably college, I connected with my girlfriend in Michigan that had a similar, like, unique muscular dystrophy, but that was like the only one that I really talked to about my muscular dystrophy growing up. So I love that we're doing this because I was so isolated and I
Yeah.
didn't have any mentors or research. So I love that you are doing that also now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I really love your story. I mean, I know that I've read through it and it's on the site, and I just am fascinated by like all that you've been through, especially with the stroke and relearning how to just be human again, after going through something so traumatic. That is really amazing. So I've been a big fan. I feel so honored to
Oh
be
my
on your
God,
little,
yay, me too.
but I
Yeah,
do think like totally isolating, and nobody is talking about it.
yeah,
And it's not just having it. Like it's not just the things that come with like the muscle loss. It's not the doctor's appointments. I mean, it is, but it's also the stuff like one of the one of the things that I shared on my blog was being dumped because a guy didn't want to date me
yep.
because of the fact that I possibly could like have an issue later on in life if they don't find a cure. These tiny little nuances that we don't think about, as that normal people
Yeah,
don't have to think about. And I'm sitting there on a second or third date, like when do I tell him that my muscles are atrophying? Like when do I tell him that, like, is he not going to like me? Like, how do I travel? What, the flight is 10 hours. Like, I need to be in first class or I can't go. Like, I can't afford that. These types of things that nobody prepares you to talk about or think about because nobody's walked in those shoes around you because it's so rare. And so that's where I was like, we need like virtual big sisters all over Instagram
yes,
to tell us the tea,
yep. That's what I was explaining to a news outlet. I just took Instagram like my diary. I was like, okay, my story is gonna inspire because I went to an able-bodied school. So, I mean, I really didn't have anyone look up to. I was just sharing my story because, I thought, sharing my story young will just, kind of educate people because I got bullied for a wheelchair, and I was like, they called me anorexic. I'm a food lover. I love food. So, it was like, okay, if I had this platform for free, why don't we just educate,
Yeah.
everyone?
Absolutely. And I think that I think it's been also so therapeutic for me to take to it like a diary. I started realizing, why do I have to be the one to hide this? Like, am I doing the public
Exactly.
any good by hiding it? Hiding how I feel, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, like we've gone through our whole life, everyone thinks we're fine, which is far from the truth. But like me walking down the street, you would never know. And then I realized, why is it on me to keep them from never knowing? Why is it on me to keep that secret? I deserve to give myself the grace that I need, the space that I need to make sure that I'm healing, that I'm healthy, that I'm not flaring up. If that means it's making people uncomfortable by talking about, then
So be
don't
it.
follow me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm here and I want like the people that follow me to not only be super loving and kind and supportive, obviously of me, but of each other. And I want to foster that environment. And it's kind of like we're not a society that hides disability anymore.
Nope.
We're growing out of that.
Exactly.
And like we need to be paying attention to the people that are around us and struggling every day that we just don't notice. And I think that Instagram is a great way to do that, because I'm noticing there's a lot of silent sufferers out there. A lot.
Absolutely. A lot in, all the worlds. I mean, I've connected with, my girlfriend that has my muscular dystrophy in England. So she's like 8, and I just coached the parents because, I found out that I have LMNA, muscular dystrophy, at 16 because we did a blood test. And I was in a muscular dystrophy clinic, and they come back and they're like, okay, you have this. And I'm like, okay, like, what now? Like, I was a senior. I wanted to drive. Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, all the residents, and the doctor was like, yeah, we don't really have like research because there's like 100 of them on book. I'm like, that's it? Like
Uh,
100?
Total?
So I kind of like, or was like, okay, if the doctors don't know what to do, like, yikes.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't let that like burn my desires to live and go to college. And I had a great mom that like pursued going to college and transferring to University of Tampa. Like, that was not on the doctor radar. They're like, oh, I don't know. Like, so yeah, I mean, living with muscular dystrophy and this type is scary because we don't even have like, medical records to say,
Yeah.
oh, your heart is like the, really like, I knew that like obviously I go to the cardiologist appointments every year and we do, the routine, but I didn't know that like I had the possibility of a stroke
Yeah.
at 22.
Yeah.
And they don't really know what caused the stroke, and I think that really gets me aggravated. I'm like, I need to know why. Like, I just need
Yeah.
to know why. And that really really bummed me out. But again, with social media, we had the voice and the groups of having this like type of muscular dystrophy. So we actually saw a cardiologist that specializes in this in Connecticut. And it was so fascinating because all my life until I think I was 24, I didn't even have a doctor that like would say, "Hey, Courtney, you should really get a pacemaker and an ICD," because like, and I was just like, she was so lovely, and she was like, "Courtney, you're like the actually like the oldest one in our clinics." I was like, "Whoa." So without social media, I mean, I was in heart failure after the stroke. 2 years after the stroke, I was in heart failure, and thank God we had this doctor that said, "Hey, put a pacemaker in. That will save your life."
Yeah.
So I'm so glad we have social media because, you know, without that, I don't know.
That actually leads me to my next question for you. I know you're interviewing me,
Yeah,
but I have a question for you.
yeah,
So, I mean, something that I've really struggled with, and it's another thing that I haven't really heard talked about much, but educating my medical teams because they don't know what's going on because it's so rare. You know, my best friend in the whole world, she's in PA school right now, and she's like, we brushed over muscular dystrophy today, the chapter on muscular dystrophy in 10 minutes.
I know.
Well, there's like 900 different kinds of muscular dystrophy. You and I have muscular dystrophy. We are
They're
very different, like
different.
worlds different. And so these crazy vast, it's like saying you cover the topic of cancer in 10 minutes. It's like, how could you do that? I mean, I get it. There's so many
Right.
diseases to cover and issues to cover, but the mental coping with educating your medical teams, and now I think a lot of normal people, I'm putting normal in quotes because nobody's
And
normal, but you know, a lot
yeah,
of like able-bodied individuals will take what a doctor says and listen to them, and I
yeah,
don't, you
no,
know,
not me
like
too.
I'm my doctor, and I think
My
that that's
mom.
interesting. Yeah, could you
Yep.
speak to that?
Oh man, thank God my mom was a nurse, a holistic nurse, and without her, I would not be here because, as you said, the doctors don't shit like they don't know anything.
Yeah,
My mom can educate the doctors like left and right, and they would like, oh, you're right, like, huh. And now, as an adult, going into my doctors, I'm frustrated because you said they don't know shit,
yeah,
and it's just so infuriating. I'm like, mom, how do they get the medical like how do you become a neurologist and
yeah,
don't know what is going on with my body?
yeah,
And I had like a scary episode, a cardiac episode 2 months ago, and I just went to the neurologist, and he was like, "Okay, so what's up?" I'm like, "What's up?" Like, blah 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 blah, and he was just out to lunch, and I never actually lost it in a doctor appointment, but after going to that doctor and I had to wait 3 weeks to go to the
yeah,
neurologist after a stroke at 22. And I'm like, looking at the doctor, I'm like, having a stroke at 22, I was thought like you would, shove me in like
yeah,
because duh, like I had a cardiac event and he was just out to the lunch. So I just like literally had a fit in the car. I'm like, Mom, I don't trust anyone. Like
yeah.
anyone except my mom because they are just out to lunch. They don't nope.
I was like having really bad issues with my knees, and at the time, this was like when I first discovered that I was having muscle atrophy. But I didn't know it was muscle atrophy. I just thought, oh my god, I have really bad knees. Like it's just terrible. I went to PT. I was getting steroid shots. Finally, they were like, let's do an MRI, and the doctor comes back with. And I recorded I always record when I'm at the doctor to show my mom.
Yep.
Like it's always to show
Yeah.
mom. And I recorded it, and he was like, so this is something I've never seen before, but it appears that you have muscle atrophy. I didn't even tell him I had that's literally how little I talk to like doctors that aren't specialists about this condition because they know so
Yep.
little. He did not even know that I had muscular dystrophy. So then I'm like, of course it's atrophying. Now I need to make an appointment with a neurologist. So I make the appointment. It's a 8.5 month wait.
Yep.
And, you know, I take off the day at work. My mom takes off the day at work. My stepmom's there. We're all sitting in the room. She's supposed to be the like end all be all best neurologist. She is really wonderful. She does specialize in LGMD, but I
Okay.
sat there and I sat down and I told her everything going on. And I'm not even kidding, Courtney. She looked me in the eyes and goes, so what are you going to do?
I know.
I was like, I'm here for you to tell me, ma'am. Oh
Yep.
my God. And I just looked at her back and we just had this moment of silence where it was like, it is really at this point, it's a quality of life thing. There is no cure right now. There's
Yeah.
just not. So that's all we got to do is figure out quality of life. And so then we, went down that path. But that what are you going to do moment was when I really, truly realized no one actually fully knows what's going on here. And that's when it was like, this is exhausting and no one's talking about how hard it is on the patients mentally.
Mentally,
Yeah.
mentally. And oh, it just like I thank God my all my best friends are in the medical world. So thank God my best friend is a pharmacist. So I was, I take blood thinners and I was low. So I called her and she was like, okay, drink spinach, blah, blah, blah. Like my best friend that like literally had 1 year to,
Yeah.
residency. She's literally being my mentor than to doctors.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the people that go the hardest are like the people that love us the most. So I
Oh my
totally
God.
know.
And I'm so blessed because I have three best friends that are really dedicated to figuring out my muscular dystrophy, figuring out to, have an awesome life, or just venting because they know, what I'm dealing with. Not like all of it, but like they're like, Courtney, like the neurologist is not taking you after a cardiac event. I'm like, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
hello, like.
insane.
So yes, I talk to my therapist about that all the time because I just feel that like I just have no patience anymore.
Yeah.
Anymore.
That's a great thing to ask you about too, is like therapy. I mean, I feel like that should be going hand in hand with
Social
this issue.
worker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When did you start therapy? How did that work out for you? Like how is that?
So I so I'm gonna say I think we need a social worker that does MDA clinics and has the knowledge about, okay, if you're doing, having a cardiac event, it's like I just feel like my mom is like my social worker and I love my mom, but like, we need something, so like someone to support us in the medical world. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think we need a social worker that is on our case and always, having the call to get you know, a neurologist or, but that's my my opinion. So therapy, I started therapy in college, in Tampa. Um, I didn't really start because I had muscular dystrophy. My life was a mess. My friends were a mess. Um, I lost my dad to an alcoholic. He was alcoholic at 18.
I'm
And,
sorry.
so I was really going through stress. But I just like I was so used to it, like to take it on my own and just have this tough skin. So I was like, oh, I'm not gonna go to a therapist. And in college, I had to like go to the therapist. But now it's hard because we don't have therapists that are medical like
Yeah.
therapists. So when I actually switched my therapist this year because my last therapist, I broke up with her because literally I never canceled, and this is like what we should talk about. I never canceled my therapist. I had a like bad flare up. I'm not a quitter, and I just forgot about my therapist. She schooled me. You have to pay. I think it was like $100, and I'm like, Allison, I have like muscular dystrophy. Like I'm so sorry that I like
Oh,
like canceled, but like I'm in the hospital. Like you know, like
yeah,
things happen.
yeah,
So I was like, I'm not getting a therapist, like fuck therapy, because like
yeah,
when you're not like you can't relate and like you can't like empathize that we're in the hospital, like taking
right,
care of our medical, like so I was like, you know, I don't know. But so then I was like, okay, I need a chronic illness therapist. Well, they want $300 an hour.
yeah. And it's just like there's a tax on being sick, which is what sucks. And it's not just a tax on being sick in the sense of health insurance, which we could get into that.
Yep.
But additionally, like all of these other little things that, and I think that that's where I start to struggle with is like, okay, how do I even break into the therapy discussion? How do I even explain to her about CK levels and IU and ANA and rheumatology and neurology? And I mean, like, I would need to book her for 20 sessions before she would be caught up, and that would be very expensive. So it's really interesting to think about. You know, we talk about the pink tax, and we talk about how women have to pay extra
Yep.
for women's deodorant and razors and razor blades and all the things, but there's a sick tax, there's a chronic tax, and I just think that, that's an interesting discussion topic too. Is just the amount of money that we have to, you know, put forward to make sure that we live a life that normal people also can live, you know?
Yeah, it was just mind blowing, and I had like a tantrum, and I'm like, Mom, like I just can't find a therapist that you know can relate. Mom's like, you're not gonna find that in insurance, and I had like a tantrum, like, well, okay, so now I have a therapist that I love, and I actually recommend getting a therapist or not our age, but our generation.
Okay.
Because I had, I guess, a boomer therapist, and our worlds are very different, very different. Like, you know, with boys and, you know, dating apps, I was just like, she was saying like the same thing. Oh, go to a bar. I'm like, I don't drink. Like I'm not gonna go to the bar and like
Oh gosh.
no, like I was
Yeah.
you
She's like
know,
outdated dating advice.
yeah, so now I love my therapist. She is so she gets it, um and she really like when I had that cardiac event, we figured it out like then the neurologist, and
Yeah.
she was saying that like I was just stressing so much that my body just shut down.
Yeah.
So
The
she was
stress
like,
is insane what it can do.
I'm so glad that you're educated. But I'm like, Alexa, I have to be educated. I have to do this because
Yeah.
what if, like, you
Yeah.
know? So it's very hard.
Yeah.
And I think our worlds, I was just explaining to my caretaker that I actually went to high school. And I'm like, I just feel that this age, 29, I feel that I'm living a different world than my friends because they're getting married and they're getting engaged. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm just in a world that, like, and I love my world. I'm not complaining about my world, but it's just like, it's kind of tough age now because we're not going to college or we're not like relating about grad school. So it's I don't know, this age is like kind of weird.
I would love to actually hear your perspective on dating. Like, tell me what it's like dating with like a type of disability. What is that like?
It's just horrible.
Really?
It's just I've never had a guy interest me. Like I've never had that attention. I had so many guy like best friends, but I was always the best friend. That's it. Like Courtney, you're my best friend.
Yeah.
And now I'm like kind of like seeing like the truth. Oh, like they liked me, but they didn't want to get into a relationship because I have muscular dystrophy.
Yeah.
And the dating apps, I don't know. I just get anxiety because the guys, the guys say the craziest shit. I mean, the craziest shit. And like, I really want to like start like a TikTok,
Yeah.
like part 500 that I like hate straight men because they're just so in it for the hookups, and that's it. Like, and like, yes, that's lovely, but like, I want to go to coffee. I want to
Yeah.
get a drink, and that's so hard. And
Yeah.
then I have like my best friends that they are like, oh, don't take it personal because we're dealing with that. But I'm like, but not really, because you can get the date and you can go to the date, but they're not interested to date me. Um, so I don't know. Like, I just wish that society didn't like label us handicap or special needs or um and I think they like see like, oh, muscular dystrophy has like a end. Oh, they're gonna die young. I'm turning 30, so it's
Right.
not like I'm gonna die tomorrow. I just wish that the society values, you know, having a disability.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel, especially, I'm at JP Morgan and I love my job and it's been wonderful. They are incredibly inclusive. So this is not speaking to JP Morgan in any way, but like employers in general. I think that there's a lot of like the diversity hire, the disability hire, the,
Yep,
let's hit our poster
yep,
children. And it's really exhausting to I can imagine, especially in your situation too. It's really exhausting to be the poster child of that, to get the look of sympathy, the sympathy vote, but then when it comes like push comes to shove and it's time to start like treating people like normal people,
yep,
that's when it like the true colors show. And we could say that with all kinds of movements, but I've noticed it a lot with the disability movement. And
yeah,
so um it's an interesting topic of like, do we it's a similar one as racism, where it's like, is racism, like, I know Morgan Freeman has a viewpoint on racism that's interesting, and I don't want to misquote him, but it's along the lines of like, if we didn't call it out, if we didn't treat it like it existed and like separate people, it wouldn't separate people, type of thing. And I don't know really where I stand behind that, but as far as like disability, I wonder, like, is having these diversity hires, is having like the poster children for disability type of thing, is having like we are the accessible team at such and such place, like, is that doing something that's dividing? Is it drawing a bigger line? I just don't know. And all I know is that I feel different. I feel othered, and I don't even look othered. So I can
right,
imagine if I looked othered, I would feel a whole other level. But just noticing little things about our world that are so inaccessible, and like, especially in my world, I'm noticing I can't take stairs very much anymore. Like, I could never
yep,
go up the flights of stairs that I went up in
yeah,
college. And I'm noticing like how quickly I'm starting to struggle with basic things and how limited I am because of that. And so imagining my potential future and your current of wheelchair,
yep,
because you're in wheelchair full time, right?
yep, yep,
Yeah, like, it's so inaccessible. It's just not even funny how inaccessible it is. And everybody sits there, oh, there's a ramp. We have a ramp. But it's like, it's not, you're not close, dude. You are not hitting the mark. And we are far from an accessible world right now. This is
absolutely.
not making it cut.
Absolutely. And I went to Europe in September and I was just like, wow, what you said. I mean, we we say, oh, it's successful. No, it
Yeah.
ain't. It is not. Like, I just had to school my friends and they're like, no, it's accessible. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, don't even get me started.
Yeah.
And yeah, that drawing, oh, I want to go to Europe. Like, that's so fun. It was not fun. Like, yes, I had fun because obviously I like had to be fun, but it was like a challenge. So
Yeah.
like as you were saying, like, you know, getting upstairs and elevators, like it's just this whole prerogative that they don't meet.
Yeah.
My all my best friends live in the city, you know, New York City. Oh, it's successful. No, it ain't.
No.
No, it ain't. And I wish, because I love the city, like I'm a city girl. But even like thinking about moving to the city, like I have anxiety. I'm like, oh my god, like
Yeah,
so.
totally.
Yes, I don't know. I just wish that companies, like you were saying, like they have, you know, disability, just treat us normally. I'm just a normal, you know,
Yeah.
graphic designer, and I just like want to be the normal people, not the, oh, like look at Courtney, she's an inspiration. I'm like, no, I ain't. Like I'm just Courtney. Like, you know, because I lived this body for such a year, you know,
Yeah.
28 years. So I like forget that I'm, and this is interesting, but I like forget that I'm disabled because I had like my bubble that like my friends doesn't, like they don't like, you know, care about like, you know, feeding me
Yeah.
or taking me to the bathroom. But once I get out of the bubble, I'm like, oh wow, I am a, you know, handicapped, like, you know, like I am like, you know, but I now like I just like I love my bubble, but yeah, getting out of the bubble is scary. And I imagine you like, I mean, like, do they treat you like, you know, like I don't know, like what do they like? Do they say
You know,
anything?
no. I mean, I'm very, very, I have a huge support group. Everyone is so kind to me. I think the what's gotten to me the most is just the lack of like the isolation and the loneliness
Yep,
of it. And also with my type, just the not knowing. The not knowing is really,
me
really hard.
too.
And um coping with the progression and
Mm-hmm.
watching things change and do and like I did go to Europe. I went to France 2 summers ago with my family, and it was amazing. Could I do it again? I don't know. Like, I don't think I could. I mean, we walked around the Louvre for 2 hours or so, and that was a lot for me. I don't think I could even do that today. So
Right.
it's interesting to see, and also the progression of muscular dystrophy. I don't know if it was like
So
this with
slow.
you. It's slow, but sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is, and then sometimes it's like fine. And so sometimes I get this like thing in my head that's like, oh, maybe like it's getting better on its own.
Solution.
Maybe I'm
So
fine. Oh my God. And I'm not, and then I, will go do something stupid and tank the next day. And so
yeah,
it's been just interesting learning my body. I think that's been my biggest struggle. I don't have the outward judgment of
yeah,
people really at all, except for, little things like toxic
right,
positivity and,
right,
dating was a challenge
yeah,
before my partner and I started dating, and that had came with its stuff. But really my biggest challenge has been like the internal battle and figuring out
me
how
too.
to maintain my mental health and
Mm-hmm.
not, I was in a really, really bad place, like really,
Mm-hmm.
really bad. Just when I started seeing the actual MRI results with the atrophy, like the proof is in the pudding now. There's no like, oh, this is what you have. Your muscle biopsy came back. It's like,
I
oh,
know.
we're on track. And then you start
Yep.
Google doctoring. Oh my God, there could be a whole
I
segment on Google doctoring.
know. I know.
Ugh, I'm like
Me
queen
too.
of the Google
Yep.
doctor.
Me too. Yeah. After the stroke, I'm like, oh shit, it's real. Like because I was
Yeah.
in delusion. Like I was like, oh yeah, like let's, you
Yep.
know, in delusion. And then after the stroke, I'm like, oh shit, like this is actually like
Yep.
permanent. And that's why, like we were saying that, like in high school, I would hide my disability. Like I was like scared that people like were gonna judge me in a wheelchair. So I would hide my disability in high school. But after the stroke, I'm like, okay, this is my path. Like I just have to advocate for change and like change
Yeah.
and and, coping mechanisms. I mean, you're saying like we like coping mechanisms, like what? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like I can't work out, like I can't go to
Right.
a fitness class, like I'm left to my own struggles in my head.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting older, it's like it's really, really tough. And I totally get what you're saying. It is totally tough to our mental health.
Yeah. Well, tell me about life outside the lines because I love this idea so much and I think it's so beautiful and I want to hear more about it and how it started, when you
Okay,
started it.
so I always wanted to do a book, but I was like, oh, a book is, that's like a task. And after the stroke, I dropped out of college. I was pursuing psychology. I'm like, I don't want to become a therapist. I was done with, people. And that's completely. So I wanted to do graphic design because I had a class in high school and I was awesome at that. And I was like, okay, like I did social media. So I was, on Canva all the time. And I was like, okay, well, I have this time to like obviously study like graphic design. And then the pandemic hit, so I was like, well, so I got time. So
Yeah.
I literally did like so many classes, like YouTube. Like I was just kind of like like being like a hobby. I was like, okay, like this is
Yeah.
my hobby. Like awesome, I can do on my computer. Awesome. So last September, it was just like a quick like idea. I was like, because me and my mom always do affirmations. Mom's very like, okay, like, this is the today. And I always like see it on TikTok. TikTok actually inspired me. And I was like, huh. So I just Googled like on Amazon, I was like, do we have like disability coloring books? Like, and like we had nothing. I'm like, this is, huh. So I like literally told my mom, that's it. I was like, I think I'm gonna like do a coloring book. I was,
Yeah.
mom's like, okay. So I actually found this artist that because I can't like illustrate. I'm like I'm a graphic designer, but I'm not like an illustrator because
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity to do like the iPad like Procreate. I wished I had it, but yeah,
Yeah.
life goes on. But that's inside me. So I reached out to an illustrator that did like illustrator wheelchairs, blah blah blah, and her son had muscular dystrophy, and I'm like, oh my god, let's collaborate. And she was
Wow.
so nice. She like called me. I was like, I, after the stroke, like I like I can like I asked like because I don't really care about like rejection because like who cares? Like like my dad died, I had a stroke, like
Yeah.
who
You're
cares?
like,
Like
come at me.
yeah. So yeah, she was like actually like you can like use my drawings for free. Like I don't want any money. I'm like, really? Like this is awesome. So yeah, that's where I first came out of my first book with the affirmations, and I was like, oh my god, like this is it. Like I really found like what like I really want to do because I loved like because it's educating the kids first because I have a little cousin and I like really did it for her because I really wanted to like educate her that people have wheelchairs or canes or a G tube, and I just wanted to educate her. And mom's like, this is like gonna be like really great. So I started it a year ago, and it complete like blew up, and everyone was like, oh my god, like you're my inspiration. I'm like, really? Like I just love what I do, and I just like love producing coloring books, and I
Yeah.
can't color, but I love to have the ability to put the coloring books. I donated to the Ronald McDonald, I think it was 500 books, and they were just so like appalled that I raised money. I was like, oh my God, this is what I love to do.
That's like incredible. That is so beautiful because I think that that's the answer to our question earlier about like how do we keep from being othered? How do we keep from society like creating this dividing line, doing the poster child situation? It's instilling it in our younger
Yep.
generations that this is something that's so normal, it's in your coloring book. And that's that's where it starts. So I think that's such a beautiful initiative and I think that you could go so many different ways with it. Like you
Oh
don't
man.
have to just do coloring books. Like you could do Play-Doh
Yep.
sculptures. You could do like all kinds of fun things. And I it reminds me, this is so weird, but I really, especially since my atrophy has started, I'm really sensitive around people in wheelchairs. Like I notice them immediately. I probably stare because I'm like, is that gonna be, like that's just like how my mind
Right.
works.
Right.
But I was at brunch with my friends the other day and we were sitting at the table and we were having a conversation and a guy in a wheelchair came by and he was going to his table and I made a point not to look because I wanted to see if they looked and nobody even noticed. And I was just like, okay, that's like I know people that don't have disabilities or any type of issue with a wheelchair wouldn't really understand, but that moment where nobody looked was such a nice moment for me because it was like, okay, this is not it's not gonna like be something that's going to be that horrific. It's not like I'm walking down the streets
Yep.
naked, like people aren't always going to look. And I'm like, how was that for you when you initially made the transition to go wheelchair full time?
It was
How did
really,
you feel?
it was really tough. You know, it was tough because in middle school people are just so vicious.
Yeah.
In high school, I didn't really have. I moved in a smaller high school, and they really took me in. Um, didn't really ask me questions. I guess they were educated because it was a small school, so they kind of said, "Oh, you know, Courtney has, but they didn't really treat me like a disability, and I loved it because I was like, oh my god, like people want to be friends with me because all growing up, I really didn't have like
Oh,
a group of friends. And in high school, I had really a great like guy group. Um, and I always like go back to that because like they were just like my posse. They get literally like will like fight someone that like picked on me.
yeah.
So, but I have like I love this story, but I always like wanted to educate them because like people have asked questions and that's fine. Like I would love to educate you. So I went to community college and I transferred to UT University of Tampa, and I was in a happy hour. My first happy hour, I had no friends in Tampa, and a guy comes to my table and he was so nice and he was like, oh, like you're so pretty, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh thanks. Like never, like no one, like whatever. And I was like, oh, like do you smoke like marijuana? And he was like, yeah, like, and I just like invited,
Casual
yeah,
conversation.
like I just randomly like invited him to my apartment. I've never done that, but he was like my best friend. Like we were like like twinning. And I think like the fifth hangout, I'm like, do you have like questions? Because like, like my caregivers, would carry me to the
Yeah.
bathroom and, like feed me. I'm like, Sean, do you have like any questions? He was like, no. And I'm like, you don't really want to like learn about muscular dystrophy? He's like, no, Courtney, I love you. And it was just like, I'm like, oh my God, like people actually care about me, not my like,
Yeah.
disability or like, my wheelchair. He didn't absolutely give a fuck about my wheelchair. And it
Yeah.
really like changed my world because like I did not have those friends that like aren't like, friends with me because I had a disability.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. So I just like go back to him because like that was like my really best friend that didn't judge me about my wheelchair. And yeah, it was really difficult. But
Yeah.
again, if people like want to, you know, be your friend, you know, they can ask me and you questions, and I'd be happy to answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, that's I totally hear you, and I just think that that's my biggest like fear for the future is like that transition should it ever happen to me. And it's like something that's been haunting me. So I'm really happy to hear it from another person's side who it also haunted and then who came out of it, alive and kicking and
Yeah,
happy. And yeah, it's just a beautiful story. But I just love the life outside the lines. I
I
love the
know, me
coloring
too.
book.
I really, and I have two interns that have muscular dystrophy on my team. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool. Have you like shown MDA your coloring book and like are they
no, no, I
why?
have to. Because do you know that all the clinics shut down all the world? We don't have any clinics in New York. I
I
found
didn't
that
know that.
out. Yep. I'll invite you to this group, but yeah, they said all the clinics shut down.
When did this happen?
I don't know because like but people are saying like they don't really have clinics. They all shut down.
Because they're just mostly putting all their funds towards
Mhm.
research at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of told my mom about that. But let's talk about your blog.
Yeah.
What, where did you think, okay, like I'm gonna do a blog?
Oh my gosh. So the blog has been a baby in my brain for a little while, and I had someone reach out to me on Instagram I think it was like 6 months ago. I posted a video on my personal Instagram about muscular dystrophy that was kind of like what you see, what you don't see.
Yep.
And I tagged LGMD in it, and she's like, "Hey, I have family with LGMD. I'm trying to get tested. I don't know how to do this or where to go. Like, what do I do?" And so I kind of coached her through that. And that's when she asked me, like, "Do you have a blog?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a blog, but maybe one day." Ha! And just kind
Yeah.
of brushed it off. But it never really like left my mind.
Right.
And as I started thinking more about it, about like what the blog would be about, LGMD has always been so hard because I've wanted to educate people in one sense on it, but I also haven't wanted to be like, feel
Yep.
sorry for me, throw me a
The
pity
poster
party.
child. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't want to be like, oh my God, you're so inspirational, you're so brave. Like God gives us toughest battles through his strongest soldiers. Like no, and I'm not interested in that. Like what I'm interested in is like, how can I help people and help myself? Well, muscular dystrophy needs a cure. We know this,
Yep.
and so I'm gonna cover this blog. If you look, there's like little pieces like donate to MDA, like on the blog throughout it, for their research. And then also I want a spotlight section, and I want to not just talk about me and LGMD because, well, A, I don't know if I have enough content for that, but B, like this is a whole world of people.
Yep.
If we branch this out to, okay, not just LGMD, but rare diseases that are overlooked and ignored and orphan
Yep.
diseases that
Yep.
doctors don't know about,
Yep.
PAs don't know about, specialists don't even know about. And who are these people that are struggling and how are they struggling? Well, how did I struggle? And I thought about like what 14-year-old
Yep.
Amanda wishes she knew, and
Yep.
17-year-old and 20-year-old. And as I kept thinking more and more about it, I started thinking about the social nuances around this blog and not around like just I went to a doctor, they medically gaslit me. Yes, they did in some senses. They were like, "Do you have bulimia? Do you have this?" Like
Yep.
they really pulled out all the stops. But aside from that, like how do you tell a partner? How do you talk to
Yeah.
health insurance and tell them to code things differently?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. How do you cope with the fact that you're now making bigger purchases because of your disability tax, basically, like the things that you have to pay
Yep.
for? Or how do you deal with people telling you, like, well, other people have it worse? Like, that's one of my biggest
I
other
know.
people always have it worse. You could tell anybody this, but
Right.
that doesn't make me feel better that I have a muscle atrophying disease. Like that is not what I'm interested in hearing. So just like how to cope with these things that I kind of had to learn to cope with myself
Yeah.
throughout. And so I started writing these blog posts a while back and keeping them in my phone and not sharing it with anybody. I was like, this is so personable, it's so vulnerable.
Right.
Like, I don't want my friends to judge me, I don't want my family to judge me. I've been told to keep it hush hush before. I've been
Mm.
told not to tell my employer,
Ugh.
like, you're not going to get a job, you're not going
Yep.
to, and like, that is just, it's so
Yep.
unacceptable to the way that I live now, and it
Yep.
goes so against my truth. And as I live, like, if muscular dystrophy doesn't have a cure, it's going to be more and more obvious that I have muscular dystrophy.
Right.
So I might as well start figuring it out
Right.
now, you know? So
Right. Totally
I
agree.
actually like was like, how do I push myself to actually launch this blog? Well, I'm going to buy myself a piece of jewelry. I'm not kidding. It's this ring. And I was like, I'm going to buy myself a really
Yeah.
expensive piece of jewelry in honor of launching this blog. And then when it comes, I have to launch it or else I suck, basically. So I got a ruby ring because ruby is my birthstone and diamonds are the month I was diagnosed, which is April.
Oh,
And I bought it. It came in the mail and I was like, I
is
don't
it
have a
David
choice.
Urine? Is
No, it's
uh,
like gems and Y.
it
I
looks
was
like a David Urine.
I know it's so cute. So I designed it, I
Oh my
had it made, and
God,
I
that's
waited
so
for it to come.
cute.
I know. I was like, I'm gonna go hard on this ring because if I make a beautiful ring, I know I'll have to do it because I'm that
Oh,
type of gal, you know. And
me
so
too.
the
Me
ring
too.
comes, and I was like, I don't want to do it. But I did it and I launched it, and it was just overwhelming support. And so many people being like, I cried reading your blog. I cried hearing
Mm-hmm.
about your story. I cried, I read every single thing. I've been suffering with this. I've been suffering with this. I have this. Friends of mine, I never knew anything was wrong. I thought they were totally fine. They were cute. They were skinny. They were running around, like doing
Right.
hikes and going on marathons and like doing their social media thing. And I was like, they have it all. And they don't. No one
Nope.
does. It's a
Nope.
lie. And so it was really refreshing to see all of this beautiful outpouring support, and I think that that's what's motivated me to like kind of continue. So the blog is the center of it, but I do have this Instagram
Yep.
around it to kind of, my goal is to pull people into the blog. I
Yeah.
don't want to get sucked into like creating all the reels, but I've gotten a little
Me
sucked into
too.
creating the reels just because they're
Me
so
too.
funny.
Me too.
So, like, that's kind of how the Instagram was born, was
Yeah.
let's bring people to the blog. But the blog, aside from being a source of like a virtual big sister to those that are struggling with chronic conditions, has really helped been my own therapist when no therapist understands,
Yep.
like
Yep.
no I haven't even started touching this topic with my therapist. Like, I just started therapy probably in the last few months,
Okay.
and we're not even there yet because how? you know
Yeah.
and so the
Right.
blog is how for me, and it's helped my mental health so much. I don't know if it's helped yours, but like having people that are like, same,
No,
me
when
too, this sucks.
you like literally messaged me, I texted all my muscular dystrophy girls. I'm like, oh my God, I love her. Oh my God, like this is like awesome because we love the community support, and
Yeah,
it's just like what we talk about, like the community support, and I just love what we're doing, and the what we're doing, because it really, you know as you said, like just inspire, like not inspires, but oh wow, like we're like obviously we have two like different muscular dystrophy, but we're like our brain is like the same way.
yeah,
So it's really cool to have muscular dystrophy friends like Olivia in my team. Like we literally talk like for like an hour each week, and I was like, oh my God, like you're my therapist, because no one
no one gets it.
understands what like I'm describing, except
Yeah,
the muscular dystrophy or the chronic illness.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's interesting to like compare the dichotomy of, I don't want you to have muscular dystrophy. I don't want you to be going what you're going through, but I'm also happy that you're here with me in this.
yep.
And I feel like those two things can be true at the same time. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I've discovered around muscular dystrophy that can be true at
Right.
the same time. I can want to go to the doctor, but not want to like get a
Yep.
diagnosis, or want to get a diagnosis and not want to get a diagnosis. Like
Right.
these two things can be true at the same time. And I just wrote, I don't know if you read it yet, but I just wrote a blog on like, have you heard of Schrodinger's cat theory? Oh my
No.
gosh. I'd be so interested to know your thoughts on Schrodinger's cat theory. So Schrodinger's cat theory, Schrodinger was a, I don't know, physicist, theorist, like someone smart. And Schrodinger came up with this theory that there's a hypothetical cat that's locked in a box with poison in it. And until we know, like until we open the box, we do not know whether this cat is alive or dead. So in this moment in time, with this cat that's like locked in this
Yep.
box, we don't know whether it's alive or dead until we, the observer, make the decision to open the box. So
Right.
at this point in time, when the box is closed, in my mind, the cat is neither alive or dead, or both alive or dead, depending on which way you look at it,
Right.
but there's nothing confirmed. And so in the chronic world of the Schrodinger's cat theory, the world of waiting for results, waiting to talk to your doctor, waiting rooms, waiting to talk to your neurologist, whatever, I feel comfort in the Schrodinger's cat theory more so than once I get the answer. Because, like, for me, getting a diagnosis is not a fun thing to have, but also not getting one is not a fun thing to have,
Right.
because then it's like, what the fuck is wrong then? You
Right.
know?
Right.
So it's like I can be in this moment of limbo and not have any responsibility of next steps. There's no responsibility of next step. It's just responsibility of worrying about what it could
Yep.
be. And sometimes worrying is way easier than figuring out the next step. So I wrote a blog post about that, and that was the most recent one. I think I want to write more about that because I feel like chronic individuals can relate to this. Like, I'm allowed I'm allowed to feel worried. I'm allowed to want and not want a diagnosis at the same time.
Yep.
I'm allowed to feel all of these feelings. They're never going to be clean. They're never going to be clean cut. They're never going to be fully understood, but they're still completely valid, you know?
That's
So I don't know. I don't know.
so
What are your
that's so yeah,
thoughts?
no,
Like,
that's so interesting. I mean, I would just I was just thinking about when they diagnosed me. Okay, you have LMNA. Okay, and like
yeah,
so. Yes, I'm grateful that I have a specific type, but what's the future?
yeah, what are we going to do about it? Oh, you don't have a plan? Okay, then why are you talking?
Right.
You know, like,
So it's interesting because my girlfriend Olivia has muscular dystrophy, but they can't figure out what type.
oh, is this Roland with Liv?
Yes.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh, she's on
I love
the blog.
her. That's my
Oh, she's
best friend.
great.
So she's in the team. So I think she's your, no, she's 24
Okay.
and they can't figure out what she has. Um, so it's interesting, because yes, I know what I have, but again, we don't have kind of the
Yeah.
truth of what the future. So when talk to an SMA patient, they have a cure, they have a treatment. Okay,
Yeah.
Spinraza, but I don't have that. So
Yeah.
then I'm like jealous that they have treatment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like hard because I tell my friends, well, they're like, well, why are you not getting that treatment? I'm like, because it doesn't work. Like,
Yeah.
because it's like you said, muscular dystrophy is such a big factor, but so tiny, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So it's kind of like interesting to hear about that and think about, okay, the future. What is the future?
Yeah. I mean, saying that you have muscular dystrophy without a cure is like saying you have goobly gobbledygook. Like, there's no, okay. And well, most people with goobly gobbledygook end up like this. Okay. Well, like at some point, do I want to know? Do I not want to know? I want to know and I don't want to know at the same time. Like
Right.
Schrodinger's cat. Like it's just wild what this does to the human brain.
Right.
Um, I think that like it's done more of a number mentally on me than physically so far in my life. I
Oh
don't
yeah, me too.
like it's just it's wild.
Yeah.
So
And like I think I was like talking to my therapist, like I live like in the day. Like I don't really have like a future because I was told at 16, yeah, we don't know what will happen. So I don't really think about like the future now because I don't want to like worry about like, you know, my mind and like, but like as the same thing, like I like I'm like jealous that my friends can get married and talk about kids and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, like yes, you know, live in totally different worlds, but it's like it's a blessing and a curse, you know?
Yeah. Does your muscular dystrophy, I don't know if this is like an appropriate question to ask, but does your muscular dystrophy impact at all your like anatomy or ability to have children?
No, nope,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's great.
um,
If
yeah,
you
but
want
it's
children.
like high
That's great.
risk. It's
Yeah.
like high risk, and I never actually like. I thought I really didn't like think about like kids. Like I was always, oh, I'm gonna get a surrogate. Like I was not like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I have to get pregnant. So I'm thankful that I'm not like, you know, rushing that aspect. But you know, it's like it's hard to like mentally accept what is going on in your body, and then your mind is like totally like, you know,
Right.
working.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh,
It's very
man.
interesting.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've really loved talking with you
Yeah,
tonight. This has
oh my
been,
god, I love
this
it.
hour just flew by.
I
It's already
know,
6:10.
I know. Um, what else? So I guess, you know, we're educating, and I love what you're doing. I mean, you inspired my girlfriends, and I love what you're doing, and I love that you are, you know, have a job that's like
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm
And
really, I will say, like, for anyone that, well, I know there's not a ton of people on live right now, but I know you
yep,
have this stuff on YouTube and a lot of people watch. So, like, anyone that's struggling with chronic illness and, like, jobs, I mean, I'm not impacted at all really
yep,
cognitively by my issues. The only thing I would say is just extreme fatigue.
yeah,
Um, but aside from that, I'm not, like, struggling with anything. That being said, I've been very, very open with my employer, and they have been incredibly accepting of
yep,
what's going on. So that's something to consider, that we are in 2024.
yep,
And, you know, I will acknowledge that I have a certain level of privilege in the
yes,
corporate world. You know, I'm working for the largest bank in America. Like, they're gonna have to adhere to their ADA. But that being said, like, that's the standard we should hold everyone
absolutely,
to, not just the largest bank in the world, you know?
yep.
So I think that um, being open about your situation and just leaning on that ADA
Yep.
and knowing that it's there to catch you if you fall. Just make sure you're smart about the way that you talk to your employer. And
Yep.
I'm also here if anybody wants to reach out to me about how to do that. That was, you know, that might be another blog post because that was a
Yeah.
whole dealio in
Yep.
itself. But
I
um,
imagine.
navigating those waters is something that I don't have loved ones that have
Yep.
done, and I don't have friends that have done.
Yep.
So I had to figure it out. And so that's what I kind of want to stress with like the job world. If you plan to enter a 9 to 5,
And
like make sure your
you can.
employer,
I want to emphasize that you can,
yeah,
because I think when I was growing up, they're like, oh, like you can't work. I'm like, why not? Like I'm getting my degree. Like I'm, you know, like I'm
yeah,
pursuing it. So as you said, it's you can work, you know, like don't, you know, worry about,
yes,
you know, the future, because as you said, the company and the world is inclusive, and they care about ADA like you said, and we're lucky because I think 10 years
no.
ago we didn't have any these
It's
rights.
insane. You're so right. Like 10 years ago, never would have been, I would have never said anything to my employer.
Yep.
They would have never, but we have ADA. It's not just like, not only do they care about it, they are legally
Yep.
bound to it and could be sued
Yep.
millions of dollars if they do not adhere to it. And so it is so important to lean on that when you can, and especially a post-COVID world where we have these remote
Right,
positions. I work
right.
100% remote,
Yep,
and I'm in tech, so I'm not, doing like aerobics on I'm sitting at the
yep,
computer, but I think in the post-COVID world, it is a blessing to have these remote jobs available and to be able to lean on those, especially for those that are in some way mentally or physically disabled. So that
yeah.
is
That's the
a
perk.
beautiful thing.
Because
Yeah.
before COVID, I thought, okay, I'm gonna, work in the city. No, I'm not. Like that, I
Yeah.
mean, the stress and the chronic fatigue, like I can't,
No.
like the train is an hour, so it was totally not possible. But now we have remote work, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's the perk of COVID.
It totally, I mean, I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but it was a subtle blessing from that, was that basically the whole world had to become a little bit more accessible. And that's like my takeaway from it, like
Yep.
people weren't taking the elevator. We're taking elevators separately from others and allowing people space and
Yep.
allowing, these jobs to be performed online and realizing, hey, we can do this. Like if we can put a pig heart in a person, no, I know we probably can't. I don't know like the science behind that. Nobody hold me to that. But if we can like do these incredible scientific gene therapies, like all these
Yep.
crazy things, you can work from State Farm from
Yep.
home. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think that it's really wonderful that we've gotten this opportunity to be in this moment in time where we can provide for ourselves if we are lucky enough to work from a remote position, and employers are legally bound to be inclusive of that.
Yep.
So that's really special, and we are very blessed to live in now and not in like 1995
Yep.
when you would be on disability and wouldn't be able to do anything, and like
Yep.
it would be hard on your mental
Yep.
health too. It's
Yep.
horrible. So I'm really happy to see, you doing something like incredible with these coloring books. I keep going back to them, but Life Outside the Lines, I'm that's going to be a future. That's going to be a world changer because
Absolutely.
of these kids that are going to make that their normal.
Yep.
Like that's what it has to be. It has to be, this is just something I grew up with.
Right.
There are Barbies that are in wheelchairs.
Right.
There are
Right.
things going on, and that's just it.
Yep.
So really
Yes.
cool.
So fun for the future. And I loved getting to know you. It's just fascinating. I love doing this podcast because I just love just getting to know the muscular dystrophy like
Yeah.
community, chronic illness community, and just deflecting and you know saying our challenges and getting that stigmatized less. And I loved what you're doing. I'm gonna read your blog,
Yeah.
and
Read
yes,
Schrodinger's cat. That one's a good one.
yes. And thank you for opening your journey, because I know that my friends and my family are just gonna eat your story up, and I love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Courtney, for hosting me on this. And I've loved getting to
Thanks.
know you. This has been really cool. We should do it again. All
Yes. Have an
right.
awesome night.
You
Bye,
too.
guys.
Bye, Courtney.
Bye.
Bye.